Hey everybody, it's Cindy Bishop with Cindy Bishop Worldwide, and today we have Jolene Moore with a brand new business building class that I'm all excited about seeing, which is, as you see, had in front of you, how to create raving fans instead of just satisfied customers. And these are the kind of people that are going to come back to you. They're not going to look or get tempted by other agents. They'll be more loyal to you. Now, Jolene comes to us. She's a loan officer and a senior loan officer and a nationwide celebrity, as far as I'm concerned, as lenders with the mostest with Main Street Home Loans. And Jolene does both finance and does business building. And she's just a wonderful, wonderful coach for all of you to take advantage of. So with no further ado, Jolene, take it away.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, everybody. So I know this, like Cindy said, this was a new topic that I decided to try because I've been teaching with Cindy, I think, for a few years now. It's great. I think like 3 maybe. So I was kind of teaching the same ones and I wanted to kind of try a new one. So this is based on, like Cindy said, it's raving fans, those that are going to basically rave about you and be able to, come back to you multiple times, but also be a fan out there for you so that they're going to be referring others to you. So one of where this derives from is from this book, Raving Fans. So if you guys haven't read it, I would strongly recommend it. It's easy to get from Amazon, do it on your Kindle or hard copy, which is great. It's told in like a parable form, so a story format, so really easy to read and to grasp the concept of what they're sharing. So basically it's showing you things that like processes and systems that you need to have in place in order to create this raving fan base so that you have this referral system in place that's going to help you maintain and grow your business. So I'm going to share some things from the book, share some things from my own business that I'm doing as well, that have kind of helped me grow my business over the years. And I'll show you some of those tactics, and then we'll go over a little bit more information as well. So one of the things I wanted to share with you, if I can get okay. So, over the past few weeks and months, as we've all been seeing, this market has been super crazy, right? And for us in the mortgage industry, there's been refinancing, which has been super overwhelming at times, especially last year. And, it's started to subside a little bit because we've seen rates move up a little bit over the past couple of months, but it's still, and then now we know that, purchase business is, you're writing multiple offers on clients. You're having to waive all contingencies, escalations, really try to figure out what is going to help them win that offer and be successful. So it's taking a lot of energy and a lot of time. So one of the things I've been thinking about recently, and kind of in the times of frustrations of, feeling like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Is what is my why? And yesterday I've been working on this class and I was interviewing a potential new team member. And we were talking about kind of our systems and process that we have for the team. And one of the things I shared with them was, this is my why, is a raving fan. Because my goal is in any transaction, in any relationship that I have with a client, as well as with a realtor, is to create this raving fan in the sense that they walk away from working with my team and I feeling that we cared for them, that we took care of them, that we made the process as simple and easy as possible, even though we know that it can be challenging. And that they are, when they're done working with me, that they're going to come back to me and that they're going to want to refer their friends and family and colleagues to us. And that's really what I've been doing this for 18 years. And that is what my business is solely really based on. I don't pay for any leads. It's all based on creating a raving fan, whether it's with, realtors, with other business partners that I have as financial planners, or my past clients. So what I would say for you in the market that we're in and for your future is, what is yours? What is your why? And really think about that, because what we're going to be talking about today is creating a system to create this raving fan. And what you want to do is, in this system, is what's important to you to be able to provide to the client in order for you to feel like you're giving them everything that you can to create this situation where they're going to want to come back to you and they're going to want to refer people to you. Because that is one of the things I think that, and Amy, who spoke up a little bit earlier, is my newest team member. And Amy was actually a realtor, so she was just like you guys for many years, and she just joined the team a couple months ago. And for her, seeing from our perspective versus the front end perspective of you all, is just what we're trying to do, is trying to create a system, and Amy's part of that system and that process. And we'll kind of share some of the things that we're doing to help create this kind of platform. So one of the things is, what is a raving fan? Just a true definition of it is, it's a customer who's devoted, to your products and services, that they wouldn't dream of taking their business anywhere else, and that they're going to sing from the rooftops about just how good you are. From, if you think about various businesses that you work with, you think about who is a business that you feel is so devoted to their products and services that you wouldn't think about going anywhere else. Like, for instance, if you're thinking about getting a chicken sandwich, most of the time I'm thinking about going to Chick-fil-A, right? So Chick-fil-A is one business I think that most of us can, know and understand, that they have created a system that is allowed their clients to feel cared for, because every time you go there, they say, it's my pleasure. They have their drive-through system down to where you're not waiting like when you go to McDonald's, where you could wait there forever. You're getting through the drive-through in a very systematic format. So they put this system in place that's what is allowing them to create these raving fans. So what you need to think about for your business is, what is that system going to look like, so that you're creating that same process every time you work with a client. Because if you don't have that system in place, it's going to be different from each client. So this client might experience one thing, this client might experience in another. So, like, for instance, I had a story one time with, I'm part of a coaching program, and my coach was sharing something years ago, that they had this really big transaction, and it was like $1 million loan, let's say. And they gave the client a really expensive bottle of wine. We're talking like, a few $100s. Then that client referred somebody to them, but it was at a lower price home. Let's say it's $300,000. So that client was really excited because they'd been told about this really nice bottle of wine that they got at closing. Well, instead, they got a much lower price bottle of wine, and it didn't give them a great feeling at the end of that transaction, because they felt like they weren't as important, because of their purchase price. So that's, one situation, money, oriented, but it's also about making the client feel like, if you're going to get a client to refer you, you want them to know that when they refer somebody to you, that they're going to have the same experience that they had when they come back to you and they refer somebody to you. So again, it's really about putting a system in place to address that. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. So wow factor stories. So what I'm going to share with you is a little bit, what is a wow? So we, a few years ago, we created this wow checklist, and it was a checklist of like, what do we think of is what a wow service looks like when we're really like, like that client is just like, oh my gosh, that was amazing. So some of the things that we put in place due to that are some things I'm going to share with you here. So 2 weeks prior to closing, and this is something that Amy helps us with, is we do a moving box. So we mail a moving box out to every client who is purchasing a new home with us 2 weeks prior to closing. And in that moving box, there's going to be packing tape. There's going to be moving labels, or labels for the box. There's going to be Sharpie, scissors, just a few supplies that they're going to need to start packing up their home. And we're basically saying, thank you, we've gotten you taken care of, and here's what you can start to prepare so that you're going to be ready to, start moving when the day comes. So that's one thing that happens every time you work with us, no matter what sales price it is or what type of transaction it is. If it's a purchase, you're going to be getting a box from us letting you know that you're moving, that we're really thankful that you're working with us, and that you're going to be, moving into this new home. This is another one. I'm going to come back to the other one, closing gift. So I know a lot of times, and, I think there's can be some fluctuation to this, but I do know that there are times where agents try to create a closing gift that's specific to their client, which I understand and recognize as well. I do think that sometimes that can be challenging for you because, and sometimes it might stop you from doing it, or because you're not quite sure, or you forget, or you're, again, there could be some of that fluctuation of what that client might be receiving. What we do every time someone, again, closes with us on a purchase transaction is after closing, they get a cutting board, and we put their name on it and the year that the home was established. So this is not the full picture, but this is actually a client of mine who posted it on Facebook, and copied and tagged me, thanking me for the closing gift. So I get a lot of responses from both the boxes, as well as this cutting board. We get these cutting board on Etsy. Super, I think we pay, $30 or something like that. It's a beautiful cutting board. We have it personalized, and again, it goes out after they've moved into their new home. This moving box, again, we keep these supplies all on stock. So Amy's constantly going on to Amazon and making sure we have enough supplies in the office so that we are, able to send these out and not have to be waiting for the supplies to come. There's tissue. All of these supplies, including the box, are ordered from Amazon. So again, can be very cost effective. And if you have the system in place, you're going to be able to have those things in hand and be able to make sure that they're happening, throughout the process. Other thing that we do as kind of a wow portion, and some of this is not during, this is after the transaction. So one, I want my clients to always know that I care, and then I'm giving back to the community. So we do various charity events throughout the year as well. So this, for instance, was a food drive, but you can also see it was Pampers and all that kind of stuff. It was for the Western Fairfax Christian Ministries food pantry, and there were supplies that they needed. So we reached out to find out what they needed, and then we did this drive to be able to collect those items needed, and then donated them to the food pantry. So again, making sure, like, we do this twice a year. So COVID, made some things challenging last year, but my plan is twice a year that we are always going to volunteer and do something to give back to charity beyond any, financial donations that we give throughout the year. This is something that we're giving back with our time as well. And then the other thing that I started probably 4 or 5 years ago is client appreciation events. And again, this is a way of, when I talk to a client and at the end of the transaction, I let them know that they're going to keep hearing from us. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. But I also will mention that we're going to do client events. So we do, again, 2 events a year. So we do one in the spring and we don't do one in the fall. This was back our last in-person one, which was November of 2019. And that was a movie of Frozen 2. We rented out a couple movie theaters and invited all of our past clients and allowed them to bring friends. We had a couple raffles as well, and gave away, that was an Elsa doll that we gave away. So again, that is something that you're giving back to your clients. Again, that's a wow factor, because the clients, a lot of times what I find is clients love it even if they can't make it. So they'll respond back to me and say, thank you so much for thinking of us, or thank you so much for inviting us. I can't make it, but really appreciate it. So just having that, contact with them and letting them see and know that you're giving back to them is going to go a long way as well in creating that raving fan base. Because there's many events I've had, and I've had clients come there and they're like, is your company doing this? And I'm like, no, this is me. This is what, I want to do for you all, because it does really mean so much to me that you work with me. And I have a lot of clients that have worked with me multiple times. It's amazing to me. Like, I think I closed one a few months ago, and I think it was probably the 6th or 7th transaction I've had with him over the years, and maybe even more than that. So again, to create that base of them continually to come back to you is having these types of events so that you're reaching out to them and staying in contact with them. Like Cindy said too, if you guys have any questions, I'm okay with you unmuting. I know Cindy said that she preferred not, but I like talking. I like seeing your face. And then also in the chat, you can always put any questions or comments there. If you guys have anything that you've done that you're doing as part of your process, I would love to hear that as well, because I would love to hear what you guys are doing in your business so that we can share. And that's one thing, the reason why I teach with Cindy is it allows me, to to share what I'm doing in my business to help you all. So it's all about me, giving back to you as well. I've made some relationships with people here and worked with them, but a lot of them is I'm just trying to be a resource for you so that I can help you all, when your business is, from what I have received and then the knowledge that I've gained over the years. All right, so why does service matter? So obviously we all, we're talking about the why, and that's the emotional side of things and what we, what feels good about our business. And, if you're like me, I'm a feel person. So I like to feel like I'm doing something good for others. But obviously there's the money aspect to it as well, right? And there's the financial aspect, and that's, a good reason why, a lot of us are doing what we're doing still, is that we have the financial component to it. So why does service matter? So I looked up some kind of statistics that I want to give you an idea of what this service and this process and this creating a raving fan is doing is basically helping your conversion ratio. So my team and I talked about this earlier this week. I have identified how many leads I need to get based on my current conversion ratio with the team to equal how many deals we want to do each month. So that's something, one, you guys really need to know is, okay, what's your goal of how many transactions you want to do for the year? What's your conversion ratio when you get a lead, which equals how many leads you need to get throughout the month, each month, and each, for the year, to know that you're going to hit those goals. So in the real estate industry, according to the NAR, the average lead conversion in real estate is 0.4% to 1.2. That's a pretty low average conversion ratio. And that's, because there's online leads that you're paying for, which are very cold. And what we're talking about here is creating warm leads. And when you have a warm lead, obviously the conversion ratio is going to be much higher. So what you want to look at, again, this is something, if you haven't done, you need to start doing, is tracking what your leads are and the conversion associated with it. And then for me, for instance, online, it said average online for mortgage leads, it runs between 4 to 15%. So it's a higher conversion ratio than the real estate online. Mine runs between 27 to 35%, which means last year, I think I was around 26, 27. This year, we're around 35%. So it can vary each year, depending on what's going. Oops, I don't know why this had. Ignore that last bullet. I guess I forgot to take off that. But what that means, why I'm pointing this out and having that on there is to show you that having a system and a process in place, tracking your leads, which is one of the classes I teach with Cindy, is about tracking leads and the conversion and how to best convert and follow up. That in order to do that, we need to track it, but we need to have a system in place for us to be able to work on that conversion. And, recently I had a coach kind of share a story, is they had a referral partner that they had parted ways with, right? So that they weren't going to work together anymore. And basically, when that happens, you're like, okay, how am I going to replace that business? Does that mean I need to get a new referral partner? How many referral partners do I need to get in order to replace the business that we're losing there? Or if you look at it and say, okay, if I have this many leads, if I just increased my conversion ratio by 1 or 2%, that could close that gap. And that means I don't have to really work with any more referral partners to do the same amount of business. So that's why, one of the biggest things I hear is leads are gold, right? We have to treat them as gold. More leads solve all problems. So the more leads you have, the more chance you have of having a transaction. But if you have a system in place and you know what your conversion ratio is, and your main goal is to convert that lead, then you're not going to have as many leads to be able to equal the transaction goals that you have if you're very well based on the follow-up and the conversion of the leads that you're receiving. Okay, so a raving fan process. So basically, the cold prospect, it's basically kind of thinking about, like, if you get a warm lead, they become a qualified buyer, they become a customer, which is great. And, we have a lot of those. But if you have this lead that now you've turned into, you've had this system in place, you have the follow-up plan in place, you have the wow checklist in place, you're going to basically be able to create a raving fan out of that prospect that originally started out, may have started out as cold online or started out a little warmer if someone referred it to you. But basically what you want to do is you want to take them this process where you're creating them and putting them into this pool of a raving fan. And then some of that is about setting the right expectations. So, for us, for instance, when we get a lead, the first thing that we do, our system is that I'm going to have an initial conversation with them to learn more about them, to find out what their goals and their dreams and their plans and all of the, kind of little details about them, what that looks like. Then we're going to have them fill out a pre-approval application. And then once we get the application, we're going to be then setting up a Zoom call within 24 to 48 hours to go over the loan scenarios and what we see that they can qualify for, and go over, how to handle this current market, handling if you potentially have low appraisal, all this kind of stuff. But then after that, at the end of that conversation, I then tell them what they can expect going forward. After that conversation, they're going to get the email with the link to all those numbers we just went over, along with the pre-approval letter. Then and we're going to copy their agent. And then once they're ready to make an offer, we edit that letter to make it specific to the property. And then we're going to call the listing agent when the offer is submitted. So I'm outlining all the next steps of what they can anticipate during the process up until when they get into a contract. And then once they're under contract, again, we go over what the next steps are that they're going to anticipate, regarding the appraisal, locking in the rate, the loan disclosures they're going to receive, the documents they're going to need. We're setting up those what they can expect throughout the process so that we're setting the right expectations. Because that's one of the things that we have found, and I found, and it's something I'm still a work in progress on, is setting the proper expectations so they know what to expect from us, so that it reduces the amount of frustration that they're going to experience. So if I tell them, we're going to need a lot of documentation from you. So for instance, if you guys hopefully have seen on my market updates and videos that I send out, the changes to self-employed borrowers has been pretty extensive relative to COVID. And it requires a lot more documentation than we ever needed before. And so we kept finding that the borrowers were getting frustrated because they're like, why do I need to send all these documents? So what I did is I recorded a video, and I recorded a video basically outlining because you're a self-employed borrower and due to COVID changes in guidelines relative to self-employed borrowers, here's what you can expect that we're going to need as part of this process. So it outlines all the documents that we're going to need specific to what the new guidelines are now because of COVID. So that was done so that we could help try to minimize the frustrations that self-employed borrowers are going to have, and for them to understand and be able to know why we're asking for all this information. So, setting the goals, pointing to the goals, basically reiterating every time you talk to them, what the expectation is and what the goal is. And then if things change, if something happens, we need to be upfront with them to let them know. So from our perspective, if anything changes relative to the loan process or what we now need, we need to let them know immediately, okay, due to this, we now need this from you. And again, explaining as much as possible why that change is occurring. And then also setting expectations, again, talking about what they can expect from us, be transparent about what you can accomplish. And that's something for us, in our industry right now, it's a common question I get is, how fast can you close? Right. So I am very transparent about, okay, if we want to try and close in 14 days, we're going to have to order a rush appraisal, and that's an extra $150. So I want the client and the agent to know and understand. And that means that the borrower has to be on top of everything to get us the documents that we're going to ask for immediately, so there is no delay in getting this information to the underwriter. So again, being transparent about what you're trying to accomplish. And for you guys, again, being transparent about what you're wanting to accomplish when you submit that offer. I've had clients that have come to me and not understand that they agreed to pay a seller, $5,000 for closing, or they agreed to waive this or whatever. And I'm sure that we are all, doing our best to explain that. But I think, again, if there's like a checklist or something that you have as part of your system that kind of addresses that, would help them understand, what it is that the why you wrote the contract the way you did, and why what you're doing is trying to help them, accomplish the goal of buying a home. So basically, helping them understand that. Always under promise, over deliver. I mean, that's something that we've heard many, many times over the years. So again, I don't tell them about our moving box. I don't tell them about our closing gift, so there's little touches that we do. We've sent thank you cards with scratch off lottery tickets, at the time when we get their application. So there's touches that we do that I'm not sharing everything that we're doing, because obviously we want to then over deliver and be like, put into those little wow points to allow, a little bit of surprise along the way that's positive, because that's the way we want to go. And then communicate, over communicate, and communicate some more. So that's something that we have put into place as well. So for instance, for my team, every Tuesday, we do a Tuesday update, a status update to the agents, to the title company, as well as to the borrower, so that everyone knows exactly what's happening in the transaction and where things stand. When we get the appraisal, our goal is to let everyone, the buyer's agent as well as the buyer, let them know the appraisal's in and how it came in. Unfortunately, in our current market, there's times where the appraisal comes in low. And then what we're doing before we contact the borrower to just let them know, okay, the appraisal came in, is we're figuring out what are our solutions before we make that call. So we had one today that the appraisal came in 40,000 low. They're putting a lot down, so it's really not going to have much impact, but it is going to change the loan to value slightly. So we're making those adjustments before I call the client, so that we have, basically the solution in place of like, okay, the appraisal came in 40,000 low, but here's how we're handling it and making sure it's all good with them. And then we keep moving forward, and then we send them a copy of the report. So there's, just making sure that communication is constantly, and that you have a system in place to make sure that communication is occurring. So that's relative to a transaction, but also having like a certain date set up to make calls to past clients. So like every Thursday is supposed to be my day that I'm supposed to be calling past clients that I've worked with. And, because I think there was a statistic I heard a few years ago, and hopefully this has changed a little bit, but it was about 12% of realtors followed up after a closing transaction. So that is a huge miss in the industry, to not be following up to these clients that you worked so hard for, and help them either get into a home or sell a home, to not keep that follow-up plan in place, so that you got, because what a warm lead that is. That's someone who worked with you, who is hopefully very happy working with you. And if you don't have the due diligence to keep following up with them, they're going to, as we know, there's a lot of agents in our world, and they're going to meet new people. So it's all about, the communication after the fact is just as important as it is during. So again, setting time of when you're calling the client during a transaction, but also when you're calling the client after the transaction, so that you're making sure that that communication continues to occur. Any questions? Anyone has any thoughts or anything like that? I'm talking a lot, so just wanted to give anyone an opportunity to. It's hard to do these classes, especially new class, when I don't get to see all your faces, see your reactions, as well as answer any questions you have. Hey, Amy.
Could I piggyback?
Sure.
I just wanted to say, ultimately, I love everything that you're saying. And, people just want to feel like they matter, that we actually care about them, whether it's a gift or an event or a phone call or a thank you card. And I just was thinking about when I was a brand new agent, funds were limited. There were times where I would get somebody under contract, a listing, and it would kind of be like, I had to kind of look at, okay, I've got just enough money for the photos, and I've got just enough money. So in the beginning, you might not have the funds to do all the bells and whistles that you can do later as you become more successful. But ultimately, it becomes about, like Jolene's saying, putting systems in place and giving of your time. I would, when I would get them under contract, whether it was the listing or the buyer, I would schedule a time with them each week to touch base. We would put it on their calendar and my calendar. So I wasn't driving, that they had my undivided attention, and they really loved that. So it doesn't necessarily have to be touches that cost money. It can, and it's your time, which is of course the most valuable thing you have. And people know that. So I just wanted to add that.
Awesome. Thank you. Anyone else have anything they want to share? All right. So if everyone, all right. So I'll ask for feedback at the end. We'll keep going. Okay. So this is the creating of the wow service. This is relative to the book itself. So the book kind of talks about is decide what you want, discover what the client wants. So the deciding what you want is about, kind of like that when I started is what my why was. Like, what is my why? And my why is, the client walking away, feeling taken care of and cared for. Those are the two words that I feel like mean a lot to me. And so figuring out what that looks like for you, but then also then figuring out what does the client want, right? So what does your client's desire at the end of this transaction, or what they need to feel like it's a it was a win for them, right? That it was a wow type of service for them, and then deliver that plus 1%. And that's where some of those wow factors kind of come in, like we're talking about is delivering what the client wants, but then taking up a little bit of a notch. And like Amy said, yes, funds can be limited, but the things that we're talking about can be very cost effective to where it's not, you don't have to spend a lot of money. Like there's companies out there called Client Giant, which is an amazing company, and it does a lot of this automated for you. So I know sometimes it's challenging when you don't have someone working for you. Like I have the team that helps me. And when you're only a one-person agent and be able to do all of this yourself, it feels overwhelming. So that's something I'm going to talk about in a minute, but also thinking about there are some automated systems out there that can help you. There's send out cards, there's Client Giant, there's Banner Season. So there's kind of all these different systems out there that you can set to have it done automatically for you to send out little gifts as well. So there's ways to make it happen. And that's what I want to just kind of share is that even when you are one person or there's limited funds, it's just being aware of what is available and out there so that you can still achieve this process. All right. And so, one of the things, I just had my coaching conference last week, and it was awesome because it was the first time we had seen each other since November of 19. So one of the things, we were in a class and we're kind of talking about, feeling like, and this is a lot of agents and it's myself as well, is you feel like sometimes you get when you have a transaction, you're so involved in that transaction that you're not working on growing your business and continuing to prospect and do what you need to do to continue to originate, to get those deals coming in. And so one of the things I would say to you is, in regarding this process and this system is, like, yes, there's limited funds, but it's also about how can you afford not to do some of these things, right? Because when I invested in my business, which was about 6 years ago, to a higher level than I ever had, and it was scary when I did it, my business has exploded because I invested in myself, right? And I invested in what I believed in. So that's something that you kind of want to think about is, yes, sometimes it can be scary of thinking about some of the things you might be doing and does this make sense? Is it worth it? And I would say, as long as you're making smart decisions and you're seeing, you believe in what you're doing. And that's one of the things we talked about last week is if you see it and believe it, it's going to happen. So if you believe in it, then you got to make sure you're making it happen and the rest is going to come. So that's what you need to decide for you is what does that look like? And for me, it was growing a team. I decided I had been sharing assistants for years with multiple loan officers. And I thought, if I'm going to grow my business, I have to invest in myself and in my business. And I have to, one, I hired a coach, and two, I got a team by myself. So that allowed me to continue to grow the business and provide it in the way that I wanted to. So that's what you have to think about for you is what does that look like? And what does those systems look like that you're going to put into place to wow those clients? And then, the other way to think about that is when you're in your business and worried about what you're doing, that you're the only one that can take care of this is, you don't trust the transaction coordinator because they're not going to do it the way that you do it. think about that. The fact is yeah, it may not be perfect, or it may not be exactly the way that you want, but think about the opportunities you're losing and missing out on by not being out there and talking to others, by not prospecting, by not making your phone calls, and not calling your past clients, and not calling business partners. When you have that opportunity and you're not taking advantage of it, then that's what's hurting. You're hurting your business, and you're hurting your growth. So think about that when you're thinking about adding someone to your team or asking for someone for help. That yes, you've got to let go a little bit, and it's hard, and it's challenging for me. My team, I know, says to me sometimes a little too involved, and that's something that I'm trying to work on too. So think about that. And then, what does the vision of perfection look like in your business? This is something else they talk about in the book. So, again, it kind of talks about, I mentioned Chick-fil-A. Here's another example for me. So I was traveling last week, and I got into, most of the time when you get into an Uber, you feel like they're pretty clean. They smell pretty good, because they're rated, right? Because you get a rating. When you get out of that car, you can rate them, and that can impact their, their kind of world within that industry. So I had to take a taxi, which I hadn't taken in forever, when I left last week to come back home, because I was leaving super early in the morning. Where we were staying was kind of a little bit more remote, so there are no Ubers available for like 20 minutes. I got into the taxi, and it smelled, and it was dirty, and it felt yucky. And I was like, and it was so much more expensive. So think about that. It's like, it was more expensive. It smelled, and it was dirty, as opposed to an Uber that cares about their business. They take care of their cars. They offer water to you. A lot of them, not everyone's going to be like that, but if they are, a good majority of them are like that because they care, because one, they're rated, but they also want to keep keep maintaining that business and that service. So think about that kind of relative to our businesses, is what is the client going to feel like when they reach out to you, and what is their initial reaction? So like, for instance, if someone emails us right now and we want to schedule a call with them, what we do is respond back to them and thank them for reaching out. And then we give them a time. We offer a time of when we're available to speak, when I can talk to them. Or in my email, there's a Calendly app. And if you guys haven't heard of that, it's a great way to schedule organize your schedule. We offer them a time and say, are you available at these times? We usually offer 2 times, and said, if these times don't work, please click the link in my email address to look at the calendar to pick out the time that works best for you. So we're giving them options, right? So we're saying, here's some times, but if these don't work, then we have other times that you could choose that are flexible for you and for your schedule. So we wanted to try to give them kind of the warmth of like, thank you so much for reaching out to us. We really appreciate it. Let's get you scheduled. And we don't want to just say, just go to our calendar, because that felt too cold for us. So we said, okay, let's give them some options of what times they can choose. But if that doesn't work, then we have the ease of clicking on that calendar. So again, what is that, like perfection look like for you and your world? And what do you think? And the other thing is what do you think if you were a client and you were contacting a realtor? What would you want that to look like? How would you want that to feel? And what kind of steps would you want to have in place for that, so that that client feels like, again, you're professional, you're taken care of, and that you matter? And the one thing I will say to many of you is, if you Google yourself, what do you find? Because there's a lot of times when I Google agents that I have a really hard time finding their most current phone number and information. So there's a lot of different, I know, addresses, realtor.com, their own brokerage, if they have their own website, is I would really do a comprehensive view of yourself online, and make sure that when a client searches you, that they can find you, and that they can find the most accurate information, and so that they have the right phone number, to be able to get in touch with you. And then, again, this was kind of like we're talking about chicken, with Chick-fil-A, again, that's a personal preference. I know not everyone loves Chick-fil-A, but I think it's a pretty broad example of most that I do encounter do love Chick-fil-A. But what business is that for you? If it's not, there's stores out there. I like Target, that the Nordstrom, some of those clients, that those organizations, that their customer service is great, they're easy to work with, easy, they have processes and systems in place to allow you to achieve what your goal is of what you need to do, whether or not it's buy something, return something, whatever that might look like. What does that look like for you and your business? All right. And then think about, who are you working with? This is, again, like we were talking about with conversion, my goal is to be for many years is to work with all referrals. And that's what we're doing right now. So every transaction, every lead I get is based on a referral. And I would say, just for you, again, think about when you track the leads, it tells you where those leads are coming from, which allows you to focus on what relationships you've created that are providing those leads. So if it's a past client, who's referred somebody to you, make sure you have a referral, program in place to thank them, to be reaching out to them, send them a little gift, whatever it may be, to make sure that you recognize and acknowledge and thank them for that. If it's business partners, again, just a system to be able to reach out and thank them. So who are you working with? Is it a cold lead, a warm lead? Who are you getting those leads from, and making sure that you're taking care of those partners that you, or past clients that you're receiving those from. The other thing I would say too is during a transaction is one of the most optimal times to get a lead. So putting that into your script when you're thinking about your process is like, if I take great care of you, I hope that you would be comfortable in referring your family, friends, and colleagues. Do you know of anyone that might be looking to buy or sell? Please keep me in mind, because all of my business is based on referrals. So just reiterating that as part of the process, because again, clients don't know, we talked about this last week, is a lot of times they assume you're busy, or they assume you don't want more business and you're fine with what you have. So if we're not asking for it and putting it out there, then no one's going to know that this is what we need. So if we want to, continue the business to grow, and that's something I looked into a lot last week in my conference, was how do you keep your business repeatable and retainable, like that it continues to stay and grow over the years. A lot of that is data tracking, tracking what your leads are, what your conversion is, where the leads are coming from, all of that, it involves a lot of that. So keep that in mind. All right, create service that makes you stand out in crowd of competitors. As we know, there's a lot of lenders and there's a lot of realtors in our world. So again, this is about allowing you to, to separate yourself. So something I started about 3 years ago is I do a video every week. Every week I do a video to realtors, sharing tips and, different things that I'm learning along the way, or wanting to share with you all to help you in your business. And then I send a video out to my past clients every month. And I will tell you, I've been doing those videos for 3 years, and it just started, I feel like, in the past 2 months, kind of hitting, in the sense of I have agents reaching out to me that I'm just meeting through these videos, or reaching out and thanking me for the videos, asking me for more information. So it takes time. So it's not going to be something when you start this process and this service, and kind of establishing what you think you want to do, it's going to immediately, you're going to start having the leads, flood in. But if you stay consistent and you stay on track with it, then over the time, you're going to start to build that up, and you're going to start to see it come in. And that's, again, what I'm finding in my business, in various aspects that we've been doing. It was client appreciation events. The first few years was like people thanked me and enjoyed it, but then I started getting leads from it as well. And then the videos that I'm doing, again, those are now turning into relationships and new relationships that I'm gaining because of that. And it's me just sharing information, trying to be a piece of, provide value. And that's, again, what you want to do when you think about following up with your past clients, is what kind of value are you bringing to them? And thinking about, right now you could be sharing, if you're in forbearance, what does that mean? What does that look like? What do you want to keep in mind? There's so many different things relative to our market. Like, are you thinking about selling? Here's what you want to keep in mind. Are you thinking about buying? just sharing the value of you and your knowledge with your database so that they know to reach out to you. So the legendary customer service, again, admit mistakes and fix problems to build the stronger relationships. That is something that I try to do, immediately. Is, again, like I said, like the little appraisal is not our mistake, but I'm going to fix it. I'm going to figure out what the solution is for the client before I just call and say, oh my gosh, the appraisal came in low. I don't know what the heck we're going to do. We're going to have already talked about it prior to the offer being made. So they're prepared. And then 2, here's now the solution that it's happened, and we know what the exact numbers are that we're dealing with. So again, thinking about that from your perspective too, relative to talking to them about the appraisal. Have they talked to the lender? Are they comfortable with it? Do they have the funds? Do they know what that looks like? Really having all of those conversations beforehand. And that's, again, knowing our products, helping all the clients understand what does it mean waiving the appraisal contingency? What does it mean waiving the financing contingency? All of those things. And then coming up with something new. And that's where, I think something we're always working on, for me, a few years ago is videos. We change up our closing, like a year ago, pre-COVID, my closing gift was a bag that we brought to closing, and it had a bottle of champagne, it had trash bags, Kleenex, paper towels, all the supplies that you need when you first, are moving in and you can't find stuff. That's what we used to take, and I'd go to every closing and drop that off. But when we had to, not be able to go in person, we shifted, and that's when we started doing the cutting boards. So next year, after, hopefully we start to get back to normal, we'll shift again. So it's always kind of revamping as well to make sure that you're kind of staying with what you think the clients would enjoy, but also what works for you, because obviously that closing bag wasn't going to work anymore. So again, thinking about that. All right. So what does a good follow-up system look like? So a good follow-up system has 3 attributes. It has to be systematic, meaning the process is done the same time every way, which is what we've been talking about. And that's why I was talking about, like, there's systems out there that your CRMs have follow-up campaigns that you can use. There's, like I said, there's Client Giant, there's send out cards, there's Banner Season, there's all kinds of systems out there that you can use to make it more automated, so it's not all reliant on you. If you're a one person team, it needs to be generate consistent and predictable results, and that again goes back to tracking. When you're tracking your leads, when you're tracking your conversion and how many transactions you close, that's what's going to allow you to stay consistent and predictable. Because for many years in my business, I would see peaks and valleys. I'd have one really incredible month, and then the next month was like not so good. And it would kind of go like that. And that was because I was working so much in the business and not on it that I'd have, good business here, and then I wasn't originating and prospecting, so it'd go down here. So when you have these systems in place and you have this consistency, then you're going to allow yourself to have predictable results, because you have the same process in place every time, and you're still originating and still prospecting and making the phone calls that you need. And requiring minimal physical interaction to make it run, meaning it should run on autopilot. And that's where you're creating a checklist, right? And this is something that my team and I are going to be working on to make our system even smoother, is having a very clear checklist of, like, here's what happens every time, so that, is there any of the things that we're doing can be automated any further than what we already have, or what does that look like? I personally like to have things automated, but I also love the personal touch. I don't want it to feel automated. And that's sometimes the challenge. I don't want it to feel like it is the same thing, meaning like this is just something that somebody else does for them. I want them to feel like it's coming from us. So that's the, kind of a balance that you have to walk in regarding to that. So one thing Cindy mentioned was providing a gift card to all. There's a Gas Buddy card that you can get at tracker.gasbuddy.com. You put in your zip code and you get a list of everyone in your area who has gas and who doesn't. Maybe be kind and send this tool to your database. They won't forget you.
They're all looking for gas.
I know.
It works. I tried it out just to make sure, because I didn't want to give that to anybody unless it actually worked. And let me tell you what, it works. And the ones that say they have gas, if you call them, they do. Now they may tell you to hurry up
That's
and
awesome.
get there or something, but it's amazing. Okay.
Yeah.
So they're never going to forget you because there's nobody else except the people on this call that are going to know to do that.
Wow. Yeah, and that's it's crazy because I just learned about this gas situation yesterday. I was a little oblivious to it, but I'm fortunate because I bought an electronic car last year. So I'm like, well, that's coming in handy right now. But yeah, so that's cool. I mean, that's something of value. It's something that, again, just something you share, you could do a quick video. Like we use BombBomb, and we do a quick video and explain it. Then you could have the link in the body of the email saying, click here, and you can figure out where gas is in your area. I want to make sure you're taken care of, so there's there's so many things in our world that are going on right now. Anything that you can think of that can help them is going to be, again, look at a wow service is something that they're going to keep you in mind when they go to look at the next transaction, or have client friends and family and everyone looking to do something. Anyone else have anything like a systematic system that they're using, or any follow-up campaigns that you have, or CRMs that you felt have been super helpful with you with having kind of an automated system in place to follow up with clients? Let me ask you guys this: how many of you follow up with clients on a consistent basis after a closing? If you can just put it in the chat or talk, just say yes or no. I would love to see that, just to kind of get a gauge of our percentage of that. So Cindy said Realty Juggler is the best value and great email open rates. Yeah. And that's the thing. I don't know how many of you guys have used. Yeah. And that's the thing is doing it and not, but and Marianne, I love the fact that, you recognize it is just making it consistent is part of the key there. Like for instance, what we do too is quarterly, we do a giveaway. We do two $50 drawings. So every quarter, I thank everybody that, we thank them during the when it happens, but I do a video specifically thanking everyone for the referrals that they gave to us over the previous quarter. And then we do two $50 drawings from Amazon gift cards, and then send out the video and announce who the winners are as well. So, things like that to give back when there is a referral is, I think, super helpful as well. All right, well, it looks like most of you guys that popped up, said that you do. So that's awesome. So this is definitely on the higher percentage than what we've seen in the past, or, seen the overall national average. So I would say just try to work on making that as consistent as possible. All right, let's see. So the other thing is testimonials. Don't keep your raving fans a secret. I don't know how many of you are, if you're on social media. If you're not, you definitely need to get on there. We share testimonials on my Facebook page, my work page, as well as our Instagram. So my Instagram is Jolene Moore Team. So if you're not following me, look me up, and love for you to follow us. And, we share testimonials, just talking about, what people send to us and thanking, when they follow or when they finish a transaction with us. So here's one of the ones that we shared. This is back in 2020. I just pulled one because it talked about kind of like the instructions, the expectations, the process was well defined. That's kind of what I'm talking about relative to this process is in this raving fan system is you want to have, your reviews look like this, in the sense that they're recognizing, what you provided to them and saw it, and then they can speak of it, right? And then they can really share that to others to be able to create that referral system. So here's some other things we do. It's amazing how your hair changes over the years. This was not too long ago, but I feel like it looks a lot different. Something else that we put in as kind of systems that we do as well, as I did a video on mortgage do's and don'ts. And some of the things that I do are in reaction to things that are happening that we've seen continually kind of start to have an impact on the business. And that is people were changing their jobs, they were buying cars, they were, doing a lot of different things throughout the transaction that they would then notify us of later. That would, could potentially have a big impact on their ability to close. So we have a video that we send out now on mortgage do's and don'ts. So when they get pre-approved, we want them, and it's really cute because it talks about if you're looking at making any major purchase, to reach out to us. I've had clients reach out to me after closing and say, I want to buy a car now. Is it okay? And I think that's so awesome because I'm like, one, they paid attention and they obviously looked at it. And two, obviously, we don't care what happens after the closing. As long as you're making your payments, you're good to go. But that's what you want, is you want people to pay attention. And they do. When you have these systems in place, I've had many clients say to me, we want to go buy a car, we want to do this, or we need to charge our credit cards, we want to buy new appliances for the home. Is that okay? So it prompts them to at least ask us so that we then can tell them whether or not their DTI works, their debt to income works for them to get a new car, or do they need to wait till after the transaction's over? We can have that conversation with them so that there's no surprises, prior to closing. So that's something we put into place. And then we also put into place, like after you're pre-approved, what can you expect? Like what again, that goes back to the process of like, where do we stand now? What's the next steps and what can we expect? So thinking about doing videos, and I know not everyone is always comfortable with them. And believe me, when I first started doing videos, I did take after take. I tried to write out what I was going to say and have this whole script. And basically now I do one take normally. We did a video, I think we sent out last week. And if you guys need it, let me know, we can resend it. But it had the link to the light I use, this ring light. I use a microphone that I clip and I connect to my phone. I just use my iPhone for the videos. And basically, we kind of show behind the scenes of like, here's what I do, to be able to create the videos. And then we use BombBomb, which is a system that we upload the video to. And then we also have a YouTube that we've uploaded the videos to. I've texted videos as well when I'm trying to reach like a listing agent. A lot of you guys are so busy right now and your voicemails are full. I'll follow up with the video and just text it to them, introducing myself if I can't reach them when his offer's been submitted. So there's so many ways that you can use videos, and you could put that into your system as well. Like after you go to a listing appointment, send a video via text and thanking them, for meeting with you, really appreciated the opportunity. There's just ways to do it where it doesn't have to be this formal, video that you feel like, it has to be looking perfect. So those are some things that we put into our system and to manage that. All right, so James said, are lenders now checking on the bars after closing made verified jobs? No, that was a funny thing. What I was saying, where he was asking about could they buy a car? We don't check that. We check it up to closing. And that because of COVID, we are definitely verifying jobs, very much closer to closing than we did before, because we want to make sure that nothing has changed and nothing has impacted their business. So we are doing a little bit more. We're asking for an updated pay stub, things like that we didn't used to. But no, we're not doing anything after the fact. So after you've gone to closing and you're in that home, like I said, as long as you're making your payments, you shouldn't hear from us. So everything, is good there. Any questions that you guys have? And I would love to hear if there's anything that you think, like, tell me what a wow process looks like to you. Like, what would be your first step when you get a lead? What would be the next step? What would that kind of look like? And I'd love to, hear some ideas that you all have that I can then share with everybody and add this for when the next time I do this, I'll be able to give some ideas of what other agents shared with me as well. So I'd love to hear from you all. And don't be shy, just tell me. So hard. I tell you guys, giving an online class is challenging. So you got to help me out here. Give me a couple things because I love to see faces and I love to interact. So it's, I see like 3 on the screen at a time. All right, do I need, maybe I'll call on somebody. All right, Kim Gibson, I just saw your picture. Is there anything you would say, like give as an idea of what you would say for a kind of what a wow process would look like for you, a step involved in that?
Hello. I guess what I do and what would be a wow factor for me is if I emailed someone or if I called someone asking for assistance or asking their advice or anything like that, I would want a response back immediately, even if it's only to tell me, thanks, I got your message. I'm not available right now, but I can get back to you at 4 o'clock. I can get back to you at 2:30. Is that a good time for you? Or if I can call them right then, or if I can email them right then, and however they contact me is how I would like my response back. If they text me, I'll text them back. If they email me, I email them back. If they call me, I call them back. And I do answer the phantom phone number that that my caller ID tells me I probably shouldn't answer. And yes, I get a lot of calls about my car warranty, but it's worth it because you do get the random call. I see you listed the house across the street from me, and they're calling off my sign and they come up as just a random number I don't know. So I always answer my phone when I'm able, and I always get back to them immediately if it's, and that's what I would want. I would want somebody to get back to me immediately. I don't want to be wondering, did they get the message? Did I call the right number? Are they too busy? I want to know right now, do you have time for me or not? You don't have to talk to me this minute, but I need to know you heard from me.
Right. Okay, that's good. So basically just hearing from that person and you doing the same for your clients. So if a client reaches out to you, you're basically responding and saying, I can't talk right now, but here's when I can talk.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Awesome. All right. Susan McKinney, depends on the lead. If a referral, then I send a thank you note to the referrer, thanking them to the lead and including brownies. Awesome. Susan, do you use a service to do that, or do you do it yourself?
I use send out cards.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah. And I've done that many times too. And send out cards, the brownies are great and
Yes, they
super
are.
easy to use.
And people love them.
Yeah, they do for sure. So, so everyone basically says immediate contact, establish rapport, ensure you reach out to the lead ASAP. One thing I would think about too, and this is something that my coaching program brought up last week too, is what does immediate look like? Because we all say immediate, but what does that look like? Does that mean 20 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour? Because in our eyes, that can look different to everybody. So that's one thing I would suggest that you think about when you're creating this system is how quickly do you want to respond to a lead and what does that look like? Because then if you believe, I need to respond to a lead within 30 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever it may be, or 5 minutes, you can say that as part of your system. Like you can let people know if I receive a referral from somebody, they're going to hear back from me within 30 minutes or whatever that time period looks like. So that can be kind of part of your process because you've defined it, and then you can share that, when you're setting the expectations of what they can expect from you. All right. Anyone else have anything? And thank you, Kim, for being my person to call on and stepping up. I appreciate it. All right. Anything else? All right, well, guys, I appreciate you coming on. Here's all of my contact information. If you need anything, have any questions, we will send out this PowerPoint to everyone, as well as the video once we're done. So thank you all for hopping on.